Hi everyone, welcome to another live video. Here is Lucy Ferrer from Platinum Realty. I have been helping a lot of investors in my 19 years in real estate, but most of them they have been long-term rental or flipping. But some of them they have been asking me about these short-term rentals, Airbnb, and this is kind of new for me. I'm not very familiar, so I decided to invite somebody that have the experience that can answer all your questions if you have any about short-term rentals. So I invited Francis from Reliance's Property Management, and he's gonna be talking a little bit about these kind of properties and how is the process and the pro and cons. So we are gonna bring Francis here. Hi, Francis. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Good. Okay, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? When did you start? I know that you have been doing investment for a long time and you have a lot of investment property. How did you start on that?
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm west of Wichita. So I was a farm kid. I was the oldest of nine, eight boys and one girl. My parents kept trying for a girl, and it took them 8 tries before they finally got one. I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial with my life, but I didn't know what that was going to be. So I decided that I would go to college and then go to law school and get a good law paying job and then try to find something that I could invest in so that hopefully at some point I could step away from my law practice and have more
Oh,
flexibility in time. So that's what I did. I went up to KU, did really well there, got a job at a large law firm in Kansas and did very well there. And in 2012, I decided to start investing in real estate. And it went really well. I started off doing long term rentals, buying a property every few months. That seemed to go pretty well. The fact that I was a lawyer, I think, helped keep some of the trouble
oh wow,
units
yeah.
away. Now, but it went really well. And in 2015, I was up to about 10 to 12 properties, and I started being
Wow.
approached by other people asking me to manage their properties like I was doing my own. So that's when I started Reliance Property Management, which is my property management company. And for about 2 years, from 2015 to 2017, I was burning the candle at both ends, doing my law
Mm.
practice during the day and buying real
Oh,
estate.
you were still doing law practice?
Yep.
Wow.
So I was doing both. And so doing the management and buying properties at night and on weekends. So did that for a couple of years and continued to grow both businesses. In 2017, I asked one of my brothers to leave Coke, and I gave him part of the management company to come run that. And from there, things just kind of exploded. If you fast forward to today, Reliance, my management company, manages a little over 1,300 properties in the Wichita
Wow.
area. I own a little over 300 of those properties.
Wow.
Most of them are long-term rentals. I do have 19 short-term rentals that well, actually, I'm up to 22 short-term rentals in three
Oh,
different
wow.
states. I also have a flip division. We flip about 30 to 40 houses in Wichita a year. And then I also have a hard money, private money business where we provide financing to individuals that are going to flip properties or wholesale them. So we provide short-term financing for a variety of the flippers here in Wichita.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that you do that too. We
Yeah.
should do another one talking about that bar. That might be a lot of investors interested to know about that. That's good. Okay. Now explain a little bit what is short-term rental?
So it's defined a lot of different ways by a lot of different people, but how I view short-term rentals is a property that is furnished,
Mm-hmm.
or the landlord pays for the utilities, the trash, the cable, and that you rent out to guests at some regular frequency. For me, it's typically 30 days or less, although a lot of times we get a traveling nurse or a guest that may stay for several months, but typically you're targeting guests that want to stay 30 days or less.
Oh, okay. And how do you manage those properties? Usually what like you explained already, that's the kind of client that you find for those property.
Mhm.
But how do you manage those?
So it's very technology driven. It's much different than long term rentals. I view short term rentals more as a hospitality business because people are coming in
Mhm.
on vacation or to see family or to see someone in the hospital or to go to a graduation, and so they're paying a premium, a hefty premium, to stay for a short period of time. So
Mhm.
the software that we use is much different than we use for our long term rentals. So the primary software tools I use is so first of all, my properties are on Airbnb, which
Mhm.
that's where we get most of our bookings. I'm sure everyone that's listening has heard of Airbnb before. They have a
Mhm.
competitor called VRBO. I'm on there as well with my properties. And then I also have a direct booking website, which is outside of those companies where people can go directly to my website and book. And then I also use a couple other sites that kind of target longer term guests like traveling nurses and
Oh,
so
that's
that
quite
those are all the
different.
sites we advertise on. And then I also subscribe to a program called Guesty. And what Guesty does is it takes all those different platforms and puts them in one place. And
Oh,
so
cool.
it puts all the calendars and syncs them all up. It lets you do the message from there and push it all down. And so Guesty is what I use to manage all those different platforms. And then I also use a direct booking, a dynamic pricing website called Wheelhouse. What Wheelhouse does is it watches your listing and watches all the competition and it constantly adjusts the price to get you the maximum.
Oh,
So those all have fees every month for each of the
of
properties.
course,
But
yeah.
once you sign up for everything and get everything in place, it runs pretty smoothly because you got your dynamic pricing website that's constantly adjusting the prices based on what the competition is. You have your Guesty
Mhm.
website that connects everything, and you can build automated messages that reach out to each of the tenants. So that's a little bit about how I manage it. The most critical person on your team when you're doing short term rentals after you buy the property
Mhm.
is the cleaner. So you need to have very
Yeah.
good cleaners because if you think about it, a lot of times you have guests that check out at 10 a.m. and your new guest checks in the same day at 3 p.m. And so there is a very short window where you need your cleaner to go in there, get the laundry done, get the thing clean, get it ready to go, let you know if they see anything that's broken or if there's any issues. So it's important to have a good cleaner on our team. And then I have another lady who works with Reliance that also helps me with the short term rental. She's based out of Topeka, but she is responsible for kind of all the messaging and guest interaction because with 21 properties, as you can guess, there's lots of issues that come up, and she helps me with that. So that's the
Yeah. So, but she hired the people because what is they are coming out almost at the same time, different ones in the same place. So she have a group of people working for her.
Well, we have
Oh.
cleaners. Yes, we so they're employees of mine, but we have cleaners that we
Mhm.
have lined up both in Wichita, South Padre, and in Florida, where my properties are at.
Mhm.
And we have them integrated in our system to where they get notices once guests leave, and then they go in and clean, and then they notify us when it's done, and then the next guest checks in. But yeah, we make sure we've got cleaners at each of our which are three locations that we have properties so that we can make sure they get clean timely.
Okay, can I have an estimate? What are the fees for all that? Like for the system, Airbnb, I'm pretty sure they charge a fee, right?
Yeah, so what Airbnb does, if someone books through Airbnb, they are going to charge the owner, the host,
Mhm.
3% of whatever's booked. So if you book something and you're making $500, Airbnb takes 3%.
Oh.
Airbnb also takes a fee from the guests. So they collect on both sides. So
Oh,
you
wow.
lose 3% and then they charge, I don't know what the percentage is, it may be 5% to the guests, which is why if you could get people to book on your direct booking website, it saves you money and it also
Mhm.
saves the guests money because you avoid those fees.
Of
So,
course.
yeah, Airbnb and VRBO both take a cut from each side when they book. And then those other websites I mentioned that I use to help manage my properties, they all charge a monthly fee per property for their services. So
Per
Guesty,
property. Wow.
yeah, so Guesty charges like it's somewhere for me. I got a little bit of a volume discount because I had so
Hmm.
many, but I think it's around like $40 to $45 a month per property. Wheelhouse, that's the dynamic pricing. They charge a monthly fee to manage those pricing on each of the properties. So that's how they make their money, with a kind of a subscription monthly fee model.
Oh, and what about the cleaning? Because I know I have done some Airbnb and they charge me a fee, but a very little fee for cleaning. And I'm like, I don't think so. A cleaning person will charge us that.
So
How is
what
that?
Yeah, so our fee varies based on the size of the property. So
Mm-hmm.
for smaller properties, our the one bedroom properties, I think our cleaning fees around like $79 to $89 per stay. For the bigger properties, like my 4 bedroom properties or 5 bedroom one in Florida, I think our highest fee is like 189. But what you have to
Oh.
remember is the cleaning person not only has to do the cleaning, but they need to take the bed sheets off and the quilt,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to do the laundry. And the laundry is a very challenging thing because if you've got a guest checking in, you don't have time to do the laundry at that property. So you need to have multiple
Mm.
sets of bed sheets, you need to have multiple sets of covers, and then you got to rotate them and then figure out who's going to take them to a laundromat or take them home to do the laundry and then take them back. So by the time you add the laundry component with the cleaning component,
Mm-hmm.
a cleaning fee of 90 to 190 bucks is pretty standard.
Oh, wow. Okay, and now, could you explain what is the pro and the cons of short term compared to long
Yeah,
term?
sure. All right. So there's many pros, but there's also many cons. So with the pros, I think the biggest pro is you have the potential to make a lot more money on short
Mm-hmm.
terms versus long term. And an example I use is the first Airbnb I did in Wichita was a small 2 bed, 1 bath house in Orchard Breeze. So if you think about Central and 235 ish area,
Mm-hmm.
it's out west. That's where I did my first one. As a long term rental, I could have probably gotten about $900 a month in rent to a long term
Mm.
renter. Guess how much I average roughly per month in revenue on that property doing it as a short term rental?
Oh, I don't know how much.
2,600 a month, roughly. So as you can see, it's much larger
Yeah.
than a long term rental. Now your expenses are going to be higher. You're going to have to pay your cleaner, and utilities are in your name, so you're going to lose
Mm-hmm.
$200 to $300 a month in utilities, and you're going to have more wear and tear because you have furniture,
Mm-hmm.
and toilet paper and Kleenexes and dishwasher and stuff like that. So there'll be more wear and tear, but as a general rule, you can make more money in short-term rentals as you can with long-term rentals. Another benefit is
Mm-hmm.
there's tax benefits. I won't get into too much. I'm not, as a disclaimer, I'm not a tax
Uh-huh.
expert, but there's a strategy called cost segregation that allows you to front load a lot of your depreciation, and it's really helpful if those are active losses for the depreciation. And short-term rentals are treated different than long-term rentals. So I have a lot of clients
Oh.
that buy short-term rentals because they can use that depreciation to offset their active income and bring their income all the way down to zero or close to it to save on taxes. So that's another benefit of short-term rentals. They have more favorable
Oh.
tax strategies. And then it's also cool. I mean, short-term rentals, I think there's a more sexy, cool aspect to it than long.
Uh-huh.
It's like when your family or friends come in, you can let them stay at one of the short.
Uh-huh.
You can't do that at a long-term rental, right? And you,
That's
you
true.
and you meet people and you say, "Oh, I've got long-term rentals," and a lot of times their eyes gloss over, but you show them a picture of your furnished short-term rental, like, wow, that looks cool, and it gets a lot excited. So there's kind of a coolness, sexiness aspect to it too. So to me, those are the pros.
Uh-huh.
But I would also add, it also short-term rentals also allow you to buy higher end properties in better areas that wouldn't work as a long-term rental. So a lot of the short-term rentals I own in Wichita, for example,
Mm-hmm.
they're 150 to $250,000 houses. Those just would not work as a long-term rental because the rent you could get was not going to be high enough to cover all your
Uh-huh. That's
expenses. But
true.
as a short-term rental, your revenue's higher and you can make the numbers work. So that allows you to play in, areas that you will hopefully think will appreciate faster over time and make you more money on the appreciation game. So to me, those are all the pros. The
Mm-hmm.
cons, the first con is it's a lot more work. So,
Yeah, I noticed that.
yeah, instead of having one tenant that it's in a
Uh-huh.
property,
It
you can have as many
continuously.
as 8 or 9 or 10 a month turning. And if a long-term tenant calls you and there's a maintenance issue, a lot of time they're a lot more patient. You can get out and address the issue in the next couple days. If someone's paying 3 or 4 or $500 a night to stay at a short-term rental and something goes out, they
Yeah,
want
they want it now.
right? So you really have to have that hospitality mindset. You got to make sure you've got your team of contractors and maintenance people. So if something does go wrong, you can get out there immediately and get it fixed. So that would, I think, be a potential con. And then another con is it's expensive to furnish an Airbnb. I mean, one mistake I see people make is they buy a property and they really skimp out on the furnishings, the beds, the couches,
Mm-hmm.
and that hurts your ability to get revenue. So for me, I usually spend anywhere between 10 and 20,000 per
Wow.
unit in furnishing to really make it look good and pop.
So
And
you
so
buy all new furniture.
I do. I mean, there may
Mm-hmm.
be some pieces that I pick up, like maybe some
Mm-hmm.
kitchenware or stuff like that. But when it comes to the big stuff, I'm buying all new because I want it to have that new kind of fresh feel to it. And so it can be capital intensive to furnish on the front end for sure.
Oh, okay. But that should help probably with taxes too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So you that does you get to write that
Mm-hmm.
off, but it still stings each time as you get a new one going, and you're buying the property, and then you're dumping 10 to 20,000 on top of that to get it going. But
Oh,
I mean, if
okay.
you can get it going, and then you're making in Wichita 2,500 to 3,000 a month off of it, then you get that money back pretty fast.
Okay. So usually when you are looking at property and you want to invest, you already recognize the ones that you could use for short-term rental, like the more expensive you said.
Yeah, I mean, the what I do is you need to think about when people come to. I mean, well, let's just keep focusing on Wichita for
Mm-hmm.
now. When people come to Wichita, who's coming and where do they want to stay and why? And so I was shocked at how well the Airbnb properties perform in Wichita. A lot of times they perform just as well as my South Padre and Florida one.
Wow.
And I would have never guessed it. And it's like, okay, who's staying at these in Wichita? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a big group. You got many different categories. One category is people that are traveling through that need a place to stay as they're traveling. They just don't want to stay at a hotel. And so for
Mm-hmm.
that group, location doesn't matter as much, but a lot of them have pets or a lot of them have children. And so having a property that has a fenced in backyard is very,
Mm.
very critical. So that's your first group. Your second group, I call more like the corporate traveling nurse people. And they're ones where location does matter. And so for someone
Mm.
that's flying in is going to stay, on the west side, having one close to the airport's helpful. On the east side, if you're trying to focus on traveling nurses or other people by the hospitals, you want to have ones that are in close proximity to the hospitals if you're targeting that
Mm.
second group. The third group is people coming to visit family or friends. And so for there, ones like, near Delano or Riverside or College Hill, kind of the areas that people like to go to for restaurants and
Mm-hmm.
visit family and entertainment are popular. So those are the different types of groups that typically come. And then the favorite group I like, and I built connections with realtors over the last several
Mm-hmm.
years, is realtors a lot of times work with clients that need to sell their house.
That's
They
true.
live
That's a
they
good
need
one. Yeah.
and so a lot of those people need a place to stay for a few weeks, a month, a couple months, 3 months. And so I always tell realtors, if you're ever working with a client and they need a place to stay, these are perfect. They don't have to go stay in a hotel. A lot of times you have garages where people, if they need to move stuff there temporarily until they build or buy their new house,
Yeah,
they
that's
can be
a
there. So,
good.
so yeah, that's the holy grail of short-term rental guests, is to get a referral from a realtor from a buyer that needs to stay for a few months in a place.
Yeah, you gave me a good idea because sometimes you have those double closing, they have to sell and buy another
Yep.
one, but they have to sell first, so they might
Yep.
need few days to stay in a place. Yeah,
Yep. Absolutely.
that's that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So the process for those short term, so they go to those websites that you
Mhm.
have, the Airbnb and the one that you created. So they book it and they stay there, and then they have, as soon as they finish, you send the person to cleaning it up, and then you move to next one. Is that
That's
how the
correct.
process works?
Exactly right. When they book through those websites, it asks for their contact information, and then
Mm-hmm.
you communicate with them, let them know when they can arrive, let them know what the code is to get in the house, let them know how to connect to the Wi-Fi. They go in, have their stay, and then when they leave, they follow the checkout procedures. You bring the cleaning person in, they do their cleaning, and then hopefully you've got another guest lined up right after that, and you just keep going.
No, okay, okay. And have you find, like, what has been the problems that you usually have found? Have you have any problems that you can share that?
So I would say this: 99% of the people that stay at short-term rentals are good people that take care of the property, and they don't cause any problems. But there are some people that like to use these um, to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And a lot of
Mm.
times, if you see a local trying to book on a Friday night at one of your properties for 1 or 2 nights, that's usually a red flag. And so all of my properties, and most people that do this, they have a strict no party
Oh,
rule.
mhm.
But there are still people that try to get around that. So you have to be diligent and make sure that if there's any locals booking, that you make them know that there's going to be no partying allowed. Sometimes if there's something that doesn't feel right, I'll actually go drive by the property or pop in and make sure there's no partying or anything going on.
Mhm.
But I think that's probably the biggest issue. I have had a few guests, they're very rare, that go stay and then steal stuff from inside the
Oh,
property.
no.
Um, and then there's some people I think that just try to hop from property to property and are just kind of nomads, and most of them are fine, but some of them do some stuff. So those are the things you have to watch out for. You just got to make sure you let them know there's no partying allowed.
Mhm.
There's a limit on how many people can be there, and then you just got to make sure you've got processes to kind of monitor that and have a plan on what you're going to do if you find someone doing something they're not going supposed to be doing.
Wow, it's nothing you can do about those people that they did that stuff.
Well, I kick them out if they're violating my party rule, and they're
Uh-huh.
causing a commotion. I'm there and I am exiting them from the property.
And they usually have to pay in front, right? So
Oh,
they
yeah,
you
absolutely,
are
yeah.
fine with
And,
that.
and yeah, and if they cause damage to the property, I mean, one time down in South Padre, I had a young couple from Florida go stay there, and I think they had a fight while they were there because
Oh,
one of them picked up one of the lamps and threw it into the TV and broke it, and they ended up leaving a day early. So it was several $100s worth of damage. But if they book through Airbnb, Airbnb has an insurance policy platform to where they'll reimburse you for those costs.
oh,
So,
really?
so that's helpful. But if you've got them leaving and the next guest checking in a few hours, and you show up
Oh,
and
that's true.
that, I mean,
So how you handle that? Oh my
you got to
God.
scramble. So it's nice if you have a lot of properties like I do, because if you have one open, you can kind of move them around, right? But I've
Uh-huh.
had some cases where I haven't had one open, and we're rushing to run to the store and buy a new TV and get it
Oh
all
my
hooked up.
God.
So again, going back to the cons, it is a lot more work.
It's a lot more work.
Yeah,
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 I
but
can see
you
that.
make a lot more money. So yeah, those are some of the horror stories that I've had over the last few years doing it.
Wow. So I'm glad that you are saying that Wichita is a good market then for that.
I think it is. Now, I mean, I think you got
Mm-hmm.
to do it the right way. You got to have a good property in a good area, good furnishings, no parties. Try to target longer term, guests that want to, stay for the reasons I said. But I
Mm-hmm.
found it to be a good market.
Okay. And is no any restriction here in the city about
There are
Airbnb? Some
there
homeowner association, I think they don't allow that, right?
So you've got two things.
Uh-huh.
You got the homeowners association. So homeowners associations are not connected to city restrictions. Those are separate. Those are regulations or restrictions that are attached to the property.
They're
So
private.
most homeowners associations have in their covenants that rentals for less than 6 months or 30 days are not allowed. So
Mm.
before you do one of these, if there's HOAs, you need to go look at the covenants and see what they say. And HOAs are usually very diligent on that. So if you try to get around the rules, they will most likely stop you. So that's the first restriction. And then
Mm-hmm.
depending on the city, there are restrictions on the length of time that you can rent a property. So currently, the city of Wichita is
Mm-hmm.
in the process of changing the rules um, to come out with a set of rules that will make the ones that are not in violation in compliance. So I'm thinking first part of, I probably guess March or April or May, the city's going to present a proposal that'll make hopefully all the short-term rentals that rent out for less than the time period legal here in Wichita. So yes, it's important that whatever city you do it in, you need to
Mm-hmm.
check and see what the restrictions are. The stuff like in South Padre, there's no restrictions. You just have to get a permit. In Florida, I had to pick a property that was in an area to where I could rent out every night. Some areas in Florida, the cities restrict. You can't rent out for less than 30 days or a week or whatever.
Oh.
So it's important that you work with your realtor to help
Uh-huh.
figure
To
out what
find
the
out
rules
that.
are. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because I have a case with a client. He bought the house and then he said, "Oh, I want to do Airbnb." And one of the neighbors, it seems that talked to the homeowner association. He said, um, it seems that he's running a business there, and then he
Yeah,
checked online in Airbnb and found the house, and he called the homeowner association, and the
yeah,
homeowner association said, you are not allowed to do that, and he sent the convenance, and when he read it, it just say that you cannot run a business there, but it never said directly no short-term rental or Airbnb. So he was able to
yeah.
get out of that because he wasn't very specific.
Right. Yeah. So that one, the covenants may have not been drafted in a way to stop it. But
Uh-huh.
I've seen other covenants that say you shall not rent out your property for less than 6 months or a year.
Yeah. If he said that, then yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some HOAs don't allow rentals at all, even long-term rentals. So you just have to always check your covenants before you buy a property so you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Um, so how do you find those properties? You just have a relationship with realtors there in the places that you
Yeah.
in the other states?
Yeah, so historically, I usually buy about 10 properties a month, and I've got relationships with realtors and wholesalers that kind of know what I'm looking for in the price range, and they just, yeah, they bring me the properties, or sometimes I just find them on my own and then
Mm-hmm.
use a good realtor such as yourself to help me find them. So it's mainly through realtors and wholesalers. I've never done the flyers or the door knocking or anything like that. That's just yeah, I let other people do that. That's not really
Yeah.
me.
Just tell me when a property
Yeah,
fits
yeah. I
my
don't I
criteria.
don't come in and say I'll buy for cash at any price. So yeah, I typically rely on the professionals such as yourself
Uh-huh.
to find me good properties.
That's good. You haven't done it because you have been doing really good, just doing it the way you are doing
Mm,
it. That's cool.
yeah,
Okay, I guess I don't know. I don't have any questions here. Could you share well, you put it in here in the private chat. I'm gonna share those websites that you sent me.
yeah,
Um
yeah. Yeah,
for
no,
your,
yeah, please do. There's two. The first one is
that is the
ictshortstay.com.
one from Wichita?
Those are the ones for all my Wichita properties. It has all of them except for a couple. There's two ones that we're finishing that we should have on there in the next few days. But the
Mm-hmm.
ictshortstay.com is for the Wichita ones, and then SPI
Mm-hmm.
shortstay.com has all of our South Padre properties as well as our Florida property.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sharing here. Oh, there is one. Then let me to, okay. I'm gonna share them here. I'm trying to see if anybody have any question. No questions.
All right. Well, the last thing I would say is real estate has changed my life. Whether you invest in
Mm-hmm.
single family houses, multifamily, whatever you do, I think real estate is the best way to grow wealth and
Mm-hmm.
get financial freedom. So I would encourage all of your listeners to get with a good realtor like yourself and get in the real estate game because it's a life-changing experience and a great way to build wealth and leave a
Mm-hmm.
legacy for your children.
Oh, well, now that I have you here, I have a client and I say, I'm going to ask a question. I know it's a little out of what we
All
were
right.
talking about, but I have a client that he's in Colorado and he's trying to buy a multifamily.
Mhm.
And I know that he's trying to get a good cash flow. So, but the property that he usually want me to see, they are very old houses that they need a lot of maintenance. So, and I'm trying to say to him, so I don't know if I'm grown, and I say it's probably better if you, even if you get a little less cash flow, but it's a better house that is not going to ask you for a lot of maintenance. And so I don't know. What do you think about that? Because it has been challenging to find him a property.
I use this example a lot. So when I look back in 2012 when I started buying properties, I was way too focused on the initial cash flow, year
Mm-hmm.
one. And so what that did was it pushed me to buying older properties
Mm-hmm.
that are maybe not in as good of an area. And on paper, it looked like they were going to cash flow fine. But what I found throughout the years is those properties actually performed worse than the better properties that at the beginning looked like they would make less because those older properties have more maintenance issues.
Yeah,
They
that's what I
usually
thought.
have more issues collecting on rent and they
Uh-huh.
usually sit longer. And the turnover costs to get them ready to rent are usually higher. And if you pick a better property in a better area and fast forward 3 to 5 years, what you're going to see is the rent price on that property has gone up a lot faster than the property that was not in as good of an area and was an older home. So, what I would say to your client is don't focus only on the year one cash flow. Think about
Mm-hmm.
what the cash flow is going to be like 5 years down the road and 10 years down the road. And then the icing on the cake, the best part of real estate to me is the appreciation. In
That's
those
true.
properties in the better areas, I mean, the stuff I was buying in 2012 and 2013, I mean, I was buying 4 bed, 2 bath houses in Maze schools for 110, 115,000. A lot of those properties today are worth 200 to 250,000.
Yeah,
They
for
have
sure. Wow.
doubled in value.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't discount the appreciation because that's where you're really going to build your wealth. And so, for me, I think single family houses in good solid areas is where it's at. I recognize my initial cash flow probably won't be as good, but come visit with me 5 or 10 years after I buy a property. I'll show you the
Mm-hmm.
numbers then, and my guess is you'll say that was the right choice over buying an older home or an older multifamily complex.
Oh, I'm glad you told me that because that was the same way I thought, and I
Yeah,
recommend him that. But he looked like I don't want him to feel like, oh no, she just don't like that. No, I did the same recommendation. Think about the appreciation that the home is gonna have,
yeah,
and the less hassle you're gonna have to be dealing with maintenance issues.
yep. Yep. And with inflation, I mean, for those older homes, they've really gotten stung because the cost of a water heater has gone up 75%.
Oh,
And if you've got a home that rents out for $500 or $600 a month, your water heater goes out or your fridge goes out, there goes a whole month's worth of rent. Whereas if
Mm-hmm.
you've got a nicer property where the rent's higher, you can absorb some of those costs easier, and the condition of those pieces are usually better than an older home. So, yeah, I
Oh,
think
okay.
your advice was spot on for sure.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Francis, for being here. A lot of good information,
Yeah.
and I'll let you know if come up another question later that they haven't done
Yeah.
it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And if anyone has any questions, I'm on Facebook, so feel free to message me, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.